A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzong, as always, and with my people. They don't like me calling them goons, so I revert to the former. Guys, what's up?
Hi, Jeffrey.
Thank you for
hello, Kadi.
good morning.
Hi.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Friday morning. Looks like the clouds are gathering and it's about to pour, and we're grateful. Rain or shine, and that's why we're here for you, to make the morning complete, perfect. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
I would have said a warm welcome to the show, but at this point we need some cool, fresh air because the heat has been doing a lot. But good morning. It is Friday, and I'm Kayode Okikiolu. How are you guys surviving this heat?
As I was coming down here, I saw that the weather has changed. I was like, okay, I didn't smell anything like you guys. I just see.
You're getting there. Now you can see.
I saw the weather. I was okay, this is looking good because this heat is something else. It's something else, almost unbearable. And that's the heat we're also feeling in the polity. So what are you guys tracking in the polity, Bukola?
Well, for me, Jeffrey and Kadi, I'm tracking the little things and the big things, of course.
Tell us one for the sake of time.
Well, I try to mix both of them together. It's as if the sexual harassment saga at the Senate has sort of heightened emotions, both online and offline. So yesterday I was on my way home, and sometimes in recent times I've had to, hop on a bike briefly, and as I was trying to move forward, the bike man, most of them are predominantly from the north, was like, oh, Madam, small, I beg, Natasha me. That's not all, Jeffrey.
Oh, really?
That's not all, Kadi. Everybody's on edge. It's as if because of the situation. Somebody said to me yesterday, after having watched the program, may God save us men. And I immediately retorted, may God save us women as well. And that's not all. During, some form of work yesterday, somebody was watching, and it was as if an official was too close to a woman who was in hijab, and our Muslim brethren are fasting, and the person was like, be careful so that you don't move too close to the woman and you're not accused of sexual harassment. So this has heightened our emotional sensitivity, and it's a good thing, really, because it makes us in touch with our emotions, and that's the problem. More often than not, we're not in touch with our emotions, but it should also heighten our emotional intelligence. And that brings me to the online space. Quite a number of, I find that a number of people are in support of the senator who has made this sexual harassment allegations, but they may not be representing the full picture. It's interesting to note that there are some he for she's in that mix, really, but I wonder if some of them those who just naturally do not like what they call bloated elite, and they will look for an occasion to whip up sentiments that he is against the elite. But it must cover all sides to the story, because there are two distinct issues before the Senate: the disrespect for the rules of the Senate, which is an institution that must be respected as a democratic institution, and the sexual harassment allegations. So those who are standing with the senator must also speak to that particular issue as well. And it was interesting to note that there was a preponderance of support for the motion that led to her suspension yesterday. It was interesting to note that even the female senators, signed up to that as well. What are the implications of that? Of course, we'll delve into it. But it is what it is, and we should balance emotional sensitivity with emotional intelligence. And that's why it's not a man's world, it's not a woman's world, it's our world. I am because you are, as we say, in family life practice. So I want to seize this opportunity this morning to also apologize to Kadi and Jeffrey this morning, following my comment yesterday, which must have misconstrued your intentions or your commentary.
No offense,
as
you are not
regards the
write an
sexual
official apology letter
saga.
with some envelope behind it. Then we'll begin.
What will be inside the envelope?
I know what will be inside.
Spiral bind it.
Spiral bind.
Let me know what will be inside the envelope.
I'll tell you.
I took my time yesterday for the first time. The times I watch plenary is mostly when they are electing officials. I watched that plenary from beginning to the end, and I squirmed on my chair. I saw where all sides made mistakes, from the Natasha end to the Senate itself. There are concerns that are being raised at the end of the day. And Natasha's part, Senator Natasha, respectfully, by the way, made mistakes in terms of adhering to rules. And she still kept making that mistake as well, which is why some of those senators, were going all ballistic now. But I say what I said yesterday. There are three issues. First, what happened yesterday was just conduct, how she carried herself during those altercations, what she said and did not say. The issue of defamation is in court, and there are two issues to that effect. The issue of sexual harassment, as we speak, has been submitted or resubmitted, right, to the Senate petition and the committee in charge. And I expect that committee, just what they did with the level of speed they carried out this particular one, we expect them to carry out as much of that when it comes to this petition of sexual harassment. It has to be fair. There has to be equity some way. So I want to comment some senators that I saw. I don't want to mention names, but I was really impressed with the position of some senators in trying to balance the issue. But the Senate I asked myself, if there were 105 females in that Senate, what would have happened?
Good question, Jeffrey.
What is it?
I don't know what to add to it at this point, really.
I have like 10 questions.
There's been a lot of things said.
So
but ultimately,
there are missteps on both sides.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that, one, the positive is at least a lot of people are now interested in what plays out in the Senate. Right, I saw people streaming the Senate sessions. Usually when you go on YouTube and see the number of
people are uninterested. Right,
you see 20 people watching, and like, nobody's interested really. But last time I checked, I saw over 1,000 people.
No, but almost 4,000 to 5,000 were watching
at the point early yesterday when I joined, it was 1,000. I think I obviously lost track because of work, but it's good to see that. I hope we're able to sustain it. So people now know there's a standing order. There's a rule book for the Senate, different from the Constitution. There's a way you present your bill.
Empowers them
if you say something, someone has to second it. I think it's really great, first, that a lot of people are now interested. So you understand how it works. You're able to be accurate in your tackling of that arm of government, saying, oh, this is what you've done wrong, this is what I think you should do right. So for me, that's a positive. The other part you talked about, I think it's also positive. People are becoming more aware of their responsibility, how to carry themselves around men and women. And Bukola, I've forgiven you 20 years ago. Come on, this is like the best team in the world. So no offense taken. We understand that this has been very emotional for everybody, and I think, and that's why we're always asking, how do we channel that emotion the right way? So let's channel it into the show, shall we?
Yes, indeed.
Because I'm expecting that envelope.
You still haven't
signed and sealed and spiral binded.
Okay, so of course, we're staying with the first big issue. That is the suspension on the senator representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti with the issue generating debate in practically all quarters. The Senate has reacted following recommendations of the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions. So what our guests will be doing for us today will be analyzing the intricacies of this topic, and we'll find out if the upper chamber truly made the right decision.
We'll also be talking about the issues around security away from the happenings at the Senate. We'll talk about securing youths. We'll get our consultant to bring us up to speed. NYSC members who are resuming camp, who are planning for camp at any point in time, even students in universities, how should you protect yourself? He will break it down for us.
And of course, we bring in Tech Talk, naturally, and we're looking at how to get the most from our gadgets. Oh yes, we're paying attention to literally everything on the show this morning. And on this week's edition of PC Fix, we'll be taking a look at common laptop problems, their causes, and practical solutions to keep our devices running smoothly.
And that's not all. I'm quite excited about this next one. Having dreams and aspirations is one thing, but how do we actualize them? Our guests will be here to give us tips on goal setting, time management, discipline, and overcoming obstacles on our journey to turning our dreams into tangible success. He's known as the king of common sense. So you'll be hearing a lot of those nuggets on the program this morning.
And finally, we touch base with Nollywood as we take a look at everything light touches, centered around themes of resilience, inclusion, and the power of community support. What does all of this big grammar mean? That's why you have to stay here. to be part of the show.
So as you could see, it is a what package, guys? It is a
bumper package.
Of course. What is morning brief without that term bumper? So let's get right into it and start with the dailies. What are the dailies saying this morning? Well, your guess may just be as good as mine. Take a look at the Guardian newspaper. I mean, you can guess what is on the front page of the Guardian. All the dailies. The Guardian starts with, of course, what happened yesterday, as you'll expect, at the 10th Assembly. And you see pictures of the major players, it would seem. So you have the Senate President, and you have Natasha, Akpoti, and 3 other senators. What are their roles? Maybe explain to you, but the big story is pro-people legislations shadowed by House drama intrigue. So it looks like, I don't know, is that the price to pay for this? And is the price too steep, or it's fair to pay for this? Because you realize that over the past 1 week or so, this has been the focus of the Senate day in, day out. And it's sort of just derailed, in that sense, their normal proceedings. But some will say, well, it's a fair price to pay. What do you think about this?
And it's really a study in, people's behavioral patterns to governance, because you talked about how, people are even streaming Senate sessions now, and in the past they would not have been concerned about what exactly was happening. And it would have been the critical time, to show some form of political participation, because issues that have to do with their welfare in their constituencies would have been deliberated upon. So it's a paradox of some sorts, actually. Yeah.
All right. Beneath that, I think the other furore as Senate slammed 6-month suspension and on Akpoti, that's the senator. You can see her amongst the men. Yesterday, I don't think I saw any woman in that. I think they were having an event, International Women's event, so I did not see any woman there. But
that's the irony of what happened yesterday.
The reason
smack in the middle of Women's Month.
The reason I was very concerned, why I said I was concerned, is because I'm worried about how safe women are within those kind of spaces. What is the policy of the National Assembly with respect to protecting women who are allegedly sexually harassed? Here at Channel Television, when you're employed, when they give you that book, it is clear as crystal. You will get to see, so that you conduct yourself responsibly. I don't know what it is, but it was overshadowed by adherence to rules, adherence to rules, adherence to rules. Everything yesterday was adherence to rules. And it appears everybody was in concert. Both our friends, both our members of our party. What they were not asking for is leniency and all of that. And for the sake of morality, perhaps, maybe I would have expected the Senate President to just not preside over that session.
Himself.
Just over that session, he should have, this is not law, this is not rule book, this is nothing. Just for the sake, because she resubmitted the petition, she doubled down. I think what she's trying to push is, anybody can make advances at anybody, but let it not affect work. So I would have been happier if Senator Godswill Akpabio had not presided over. Whether it's in their rule book or not, that doesn't mean he's guilty. You understand?
Absolutely.
In any way. Anyway,
well, just to name, pardon me, the principal officers for people who are wondering. That's the Senate President. That's the Deputy Senate President, Jibrin Barao.
That's the Senate leader.
Exactly, Senator Kwen Bamdele. Of course, we know who that is.
Senator Natasha.
He used to be the minority leader.
Oh, of course, everybody now knows Senator Natasha.
Oh, you skipped Senator Akpoti.
Yeah.
Okay, of course, everybody knows that.
I just wanted to be clear.
I just wanted to add that you're right, Cardi. It's smack in the middle of Women's Month and the celebration of the International Women's Day. And it's not just about the safety of women in public places. It's also about representation, about visibility, about the limitations or obstacles, as the case may be, in the path of women in getting that space at the leadership table. And if this sexual harassment case is valid, if evidence can be provided, it shows that indeed this is just one out of many obstacles. And sexual harassment can be in many different ways. It can be direct, it can be frontal, it can be indirect, it can be, by words, it can be by action. And that's why it's difficult to prove. And that's why, her case resonates with a lot of women, because now the line, out there is a Natasha inside every one of us. So that's why this case, must be given fair hearing because of the weight of the allegations. The senator couldn't have gone just on a tirade. just because she wants to, or just because she wants to blackmail the Senate president. So her case must be given fair hearing. And whoever is guilty, either it's the Senate president or the alleging senator, must be brought to account. Yeah.
So let's go to this Nigeria. Senate gavel hits hard on Natasha after aftermath of sexual harassment allegation against Senate President Akpabio. Akpoti Udwan slammed with 6 months suspension, barred from assembly, vicinity, stripped of security details, salary stopped, and battle senator says she will fight on. And this is where I must commend some of the senators who fought for our aides, because I don't know why the committee had to write. I don't know. Again, I don't know what their rule book says. I have a copy of some of the amended one, but I don't know what it said. They wanted to punish the aides as well. The people that are working for her, so whatever she's not entitled to, like salaries, allowances. I think I've forgotten the senator who stood up. I know Senator Adams Oshomole spoke, and Abamoro spoke, and Ahmed Lawan spoke about security detail. It was Orji Zakalu, Senator Orji Zakalu, who said it is not the lay aides that did anything. The people in questions are the senators that were elected. So why are you punishing them? So I don't understand why the committee had to write that. Whether it's part of their rule, I do not know. But Senator Akpabio also overruled his colleagues because they didn't want. There's a I think the second line, yes, the prayer too that said if she apologizes, they will reduce the tenure of punishment or suspension. They didn't want that because some were just angry, but I think he overruled them. But this is what's playing out. At the end of the day, we would like to maybe when we have Senator Yemi Adaramodu, who actually who wrote the petition against Senator Natasha on safe spaces for women. I think what women should be fighting for now, using this as a pointer, is let's know what the rule of the Senate says about sexual harassment going forward. Okay?
And I'd like to ask also, maybe it will form one of our questions later on, what does the rule book say about punitive measures for disrespect for Senate rules? Because some are talking about
14 days, 6 months, 3 months.
Without representation for the people of Kogi Central. Yes. That's a long time in the life of an administration.
And you know she came through a court issue. So if they add 6 months to the time she spent in court, maybe she had done 2 years.
Okay, so let's head
but
right
I have the one, the Blueprint.
to Blueprint newspaper. And of course, it's the same screaming headline on the front page of Blueprint. And you have it there. Natasha Akpoti kicks as Senate slams a 6-month suspension, loses all privileges. But there are other writers. Arewa CSOs back Akpabio. Senate President must step aside for transparent probe that's ascribed to CNPP and other CSOs. You find stories on page 16 of the paper. But let's go right down to the bottom. There's a security story there. Troops neutralized 92 terrorists, rescued 75 hostages in 1 week. That's from the DHQ. A pleasant story and a departure from what we've been talking about from the beginning.
Well, I think you have the next one. Let's get straight to our combo. Let's find out what the people are saying on X. Where do we start from? Let me go.
I think naturally we'll start from the Senator Natasha Akpoti's suspension and what people have been saying about it. 6 months, that's what she gets after all of the back and forth in the Senate. And the first comment we'll take is from Senator Shehu Sani, who's been in the Senate himself. So let's hear what the distinguished has to say now. It says, when I publicly disclosed the salaries and allowances of the senators, it nearly earned me a 6-month suspension, if not for divine intervention. That's what Senator Shehu Sani says. Goes on to say Saraki and the Kore Madu's rescue also helped him. She said, just know that if you are there and you blow whistle too loudly, it will be on your own. No senator will bring him head or neck to support you. So is that a cult-like sense?
Protection of institution sense?
Did we see it play out yesterday?
It just brought something to my mind, because the concern was she was not supposed to sign and present her own petition. So I'm asking, was there anybody that could present the petition on her behalf? Let's even say
represented the petition.
Clearly there was.
This time differently signed.
I'm saying a senator.
Yes, because people spoke in support of her, right?
No, people,
there were senators who spoke afterwards. So they could have
there's no
been
senator that spoke against her suspension. They were just trying to say, let's step her down a bit. People are angry. We're still colleagues. Don't take away her security. She's suspended. She's no longer a senator. That's not the question. But they seem to have agreed as to her behavior was unruly, that she should be punished for. You understand? But I'm saying that the rule, according to them, you cannot write petition, sign it, and present it. So she had to bring a petition signed by her constituents. So I'm asking, is it that there was no senator that could sign on her behalf? And the bigger question is, if a presiding officer like the Senate president is alleged to have committed sexual harassment, leave Akpabio for instance, any Senate president, but now is Akpabio, do we have any senator that is courageous enough to sign a petition to sign a petition on behalf of a colleague who is raising that concern?
And Jeffrey, just
that's
to
a big
support
question.
That, there must be something in the rule books that also says that somebody can raise a motion to say that, this allegation has been leveled against the Senate leadership, and the Senate leadership should recuse themselves from presiding over that specific matter. Perhaps not on the entire matters that have to do with the representation of the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but the particular matter. So we didn't see that.
I think that's a question we need to look at. The principle of, because just like we have the issue of defection, it is the Speaker or the Senate President that will give effect to your defect or declaring your seat vacant when all the things are done. What now happens when it is the Speaker or the Senate President that defects? You understand that kind of situation? Do we have senators that can say, I will sign this petition on your behalf and read it?
It didn't have to be a senator, right?
I don't know what the rule
it didn't have to be.
says.
That's why she represented, but it was now brought by, I think, a member of a constituency or
signed by a member of the
you get that. But I'm saying that if indeed the ones that at least try to temper justice with mercy when they spoke, if indeed they are in support of her to some extent, then they should have been able to help her.
I think it's a question they will be able to answer. I will ask those questions. Kenuti, let's read Kenuti. A petition thrown out of the window and slammed her with 6 months suspension. They didn't even consider that the constituents will no longer have a voice at the Senate for 6 months. This is not democracy.
Well, and
Abdul Ningi comes to mind.
Abdul Mumini.
Well, at least in recent times, you remember him. So what happened for that period when he was suspended, particularly to his constituents?
Definitely, you don't have a voice.
And the threat to the former Senate leader, Senator Ali Ndume as well. And you know that these senators have had to, sort of depart from the usual pattern of criticism just to be in line with support for the Senate leadership. You see the disposition of intolerance of the Senate towards opposition.
No, even it was Ireti Kingibe that talked about disposition of the leadership to opposition, women, and all of that. But what I saw yesterday display, I saw people that were clearly emotional, people that were pandering to political favoritism, people that were just clearly objective, and people that were sympathizers and tried to balance, people that they were all shades. When you hear them talk, if you can assess people from what they say, you know where they stand. Some people are just like, is it a seat that brought us here? Some people, you could clearly see that they are fans of the system. So it's a mix of everything, but everybody has a right to their opinion, whatever their intentions are as far as this is concerned. But what we're saying, we must be clear on how to protect women. They are just four in the house, four of 109.
And the ones in the house should try to learn to protect themselves. I couldn't resist but saying that. Well, let's go to another talking point this morning. Do we have time?
Electric issue.
Well, Kadi, I beg to disagree with you.
It has to be that.
It has to be 2 teachers fighting in school staff room in Ibru College, Delta State. It has to be that. And I believe we'll have a video, but as we get ready, to see that actuality, let's see what, that's it.
So these are 2 teachers.
Is this physical? What's that PE? Is this PE class?
Wrestling in the village. Why is everybody videoing them instead of separating them? Oh, this age and time.
There has to be an explanation for this.
What if they kill themselves?
Is this self-defense? Is this PE? What's PE calling? A physical exercise or something?
This is definitely the opposite of teaching, and the opposite of everything that teaching represents.
This is shameful. This is very shameful that teachers are fighting and nobody just makes attempt to intervene. Oh, finally, You want to kill the guy, he's holding onto his neck, it will hurt him. Literally. We don't support violence, by the way. Viewer discretion is advised. The man in tie, what exactly are you standing there and doing, by the way? Okay.
So, can we take one comment before we exit this? From Ruth. Ruth says, this is very bad. What kind of example are they trying to set for the students? That's it from Ruth.
Okay, we'll take
the Ikeja electric video, if we can just take that quickly. And it was
just before we get to the conversation, the issue on Ikeja electric video, we understand the military men, Abi?
Yeah, it left a very terrible taste in the mouth. We understand that the military men.
This is Ikeja.
This is just right in Ikeja.
This is
smack in the middle of the town. It's said to be men of the Navy over whether or not they were supplied power.
Or alleged unpaid
bills
or so.
And all of that.
I'm not sure what it is.
You can see a lot of the staff said to have been harassed, beaten, some people locked in.
This is unacceptable.
Terrible, really terrible.
Whether their light was not available or they are owing, this is absolutely not acceptable. And we're calling on the Chief of Defense Staff to find these people, the Chief of Naval Staff, if it is the Navy, and investigate this. And these military men, this is a bad representation of our military. If they are owing or they are not given light, you don't resort to violence, go into the HQ of utility service providers to beat them up. Look at, they are racing for their lives. Why? Because they just came to work. It is not acceptable. The CDS has to act immediately, and it has to be made public so that these guys will learn.
This is democracy.
It's a poor representation of our military.
This is no more military era or dictatorship times, but we'll keep following that story. Hello.
Yes, indeed. So from that, we head straight to our very first conversation for the day. And of course, it's the biggest talking point. It's on the front burner as far as the polity is concerned. So who do we have this morning to join us on this conversation? Let's have Mr. Eze Onyekpere. He's a lead director, Center for Social Justice. Of course, we'll have him as well as another activist joining us for this conversation. After this break, join us again. We'll be right back.
On Wednesday, when it seemed there was a repeat performance by Thursday, when the Senate President arrived for plenary. Once again, Senator Natasha Akpoti refused to stand, defying Senate protocol for presiding officers. At the start of plenary, tensions rose slightly as the Senate Chief Whip called out the Kogi lawmaker for repeatedly violating the rules.
I have to send one of the sergeant at arms to her that her conduct is in breach of this rule. So I am urging the indulgence of Senator Natasha to please observe our rules.
Armed with another document, the Kogi lawmaker seeks permission to resubmit a petition alleging sexual harassment against the Senate President, which was dismissed on Wednesday for procedural irregularities. This time it is signed by her constituents.
And the petition is against the President of the Nigerian Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, for sexual harassment, abuses of office, and malicious obstruction of legislative functions of distinguished Senator Natasha Akpoti. So with your kind permission, may I please lay this petition?
Is there any legal impediment? Please proceed to lay the petition.
Shortly after, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions submit its report detailing its investigation into Senator Akpoti Uduaghan's unparliamentary conduct during plenary on January 20, among others.
That all efforts to get Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan to move to her newly assigned seat fell on deaf ears as Senator Natasha Uduaghan Akpoti continued shouting on top of her voice and pointing her fingers at the presiding officer.
Recommendations contained in the no less than 6-page report, read by the chairman, include a 6-month suspension. Lawmakers immediately launch a debate into the findings.
If you follow the sequence, issues of discrimination cannot be proven. It is actually the opposite. That under your leadership, distinguished Senator Mrs. Uduaghan can claim victimization based on facts.
Today, we are faced with this situation that we all know impinges on the integrity of this institution. We want to ask if it is convenient for the Senate and Mr. President that the 6 months punishment for suspension be reduced to 3 months.
My advice and appeal to her will be that she spends her period of suspension to read and learn our rules very well.
Prayer 1. That the Senate do suspend Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan for 6 months for a total violation of the Senate Standing Rules 2023 as amended, for bringing the presiding officer and the entire Nigerian Senate in general to public opprobrium. With effect from 6th day of March 2025, from all legislative activities forward. Those in support of prayer 3 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Contrary to the majority decision, the Senate President rules in favor of leniency if a written apology emerges.
Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan shall submit a written apology to the Senate before any reconsideration by the Nigerian Senate. Those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. No. The ayes have it. For the duration of her suspension, she cannot come or be seen within the vicinity of the National Assembly.
Following the ruling, Senator Akpoti Uduaghan is escorted out of the chamber by the Sergeant-at-Arms, but not without a reaction, breaching one more rule before her exit.
This injustice will not be sustained. The pursuit for justice.
A total number of 30 members of the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions endorsed the recommendations that has led to the eventual suspension of Senator Akpoti Uduaghan, who was sworn in 16 months ago. This would be the 3rd suspension under the 10th Assembly. It is now unclear whether the senator would tender a written apology to her colleagues or not. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
So where do we go next from here? 6 months suspension for Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan. And, well, there's a prayer too, which says that if she would apologize, then justice will be tempered with mercy. But let's get more insight into this. One of the big issues in Nigeria today, interestingly and ironically, really, but there is way more to this, lots of implications. And Mukola, can take us through that.
Yes, indeed. Let's get to know what the implications may be in the coming days. And joining us on this particular segment is Mr. Eze Onyekwere. He's the lead director, Center for Social Justice, who joins us virtually from Abuja. And we also have Mrs. Aisha Yesufu. She's an active Nigerian citizen who joins us also virtually from our Abuja studio. Good morning, lady and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm going to start with you naturally, Mrs. Yesufu, on this one. So we saw a representation of Senator Akpoti Uduaghan's petition yesterday, this time around differently signed, and some would say seemingly an acknowledgement that perhaps she's not abreast of the Senate rules. So that alongside a mix of a handling of these matters from the beginning, what would you say how would you assess a handling of these matters?
You know, as a nation, the fact that we're so invested in technicalities and all of that, sometimes certain things are done to challenge certain positions and certain rulings. Why is it that on a situation, I think what the Nigerians should be asking is that why is it that a petition that has to do with one, something where you feel aggrieved, that you're having to look for someone else to sign it for you? That's the conversation we should be having. Listening to your conversation earlier on, I heard where you talked about having to now jump bike, and this is the reality of a lot of Nigerians. But we're okay with that. We move on. Just also to recap the fact that we're talking about this and as what women should be fighting for. This is not about women. This is about a nation. This is about us citizens. The fact that we almost seem to be enslaved in our own country. And there is a pattern. And I think what we need to focus on, we like to major in the minor as a people. Let's focus on the major issue. One is the fact that there is an allegation here, and in the course of all that, I call it a charade. And I think there was one of the presenters who took a word out of my, because I've written it, I was like, the Senate almost seems as if it's a court-like, MiFi-like institution, where anybody who speaks or goes against the institution is immediately suspended. But when they do wrong, they are never suspended. You've never heard of a senator or a National Assembly member being suspended because they did something wrong. It is always when they are either fighting for their rights or on the side of the people that they are always being suspended. Having said that, also is the fact that what should concern us, we should be majoring on right now. And I didn't hear that in the course of the conversation. Maybe when I was thrown off, the Zoom had problem. You guys have talked about it. Why wasn't Senator Akpabio asked to step down for the moment that they were going to do that session? Why was he seated? How do you come? You're the person who is being accused of something, and then you're also the judge on your own matter. In what world does that sound okay? Even if the senators didn't have the courage to ask him to step down, didn't Senator Akpabio have the integrity to excuse himself and say, because this matter, I am a party to this matter, I will not sit on this, I will come down. The thing also we also should be talking about, and I'll round up with this one, for us to focus on the major, not on whether she knows the rush, because if we begin to talk of senators who have done a whole lot that that has not gone with the rules, there are many out there. The thing we should also be asking, why would the Senate have the right to take away something the Constitution has given one? Because becoming a sin, why do they have a right to suspend you from your legislative duties? I understand that you've done something, there should be punishment, you can be suspended from being part of a committee or doing any the other things. But someone was voted by a constituency and they sent the person to the Senate. The Senate, the members of the Senate are not the ones that gave that power to that person, but they have a right to take it away, something that the Constitution has given. These are conversations we should be having. Thank you.
All right. I'm tempted to ask, just before I go to Mr. Onyekpere, if I glean anything from what you have said, is it okay to break institutional rules in the path to advocating for what is right?
It is not okay to break institutional rules. It is okay to challenge institutional rules. There are some of them that you need to bring to the fore. The reasons why rules get better is that there are some rules, when you look at them, they are not just, they are not either not ethical or they just don't make sense. And in challenging them, you get them to be changed. So let me give you an example, and I'm going to go back to the civil rights movement. When Rosa Parks refused to stand up, you understand, it was a rule that whenever you see a white person, there's no seat, you have to give up your seat. When she refused to stand up, that was challenging a rule that didn't make sense. And along the way, this is the conversation we should be having. So it's not, nothing is always written in black and white. Where in the world does it make sense? I have an issue, I have a problem, something has been done against me, and then I need someone else to write a petition on my behalf. I think lawyers call something busybodies when you go and carry something that it's not on your behalf, it doesn't make sense. So certain rules should be challenged, and in challenging them, yes, you do it and say, let's talk about these rules. So not to talk about the technicalities of, oh, whether she understands what she's doing. She was called someone that came in a Supreme Court senator, so she doesn't know this, she doesn't know that. Half of the, in short, 99.9% of the people at the Senate, what do they really know?
All right. I'll take the same question to Mr. Onyekpere. What are your thoughts on Senator Akpoti Uduaghan's handling of her case of allegations of sexual harassment against the Senate President? And what are the lessons for her?
The questions you are asking to me, and what so many senators we are talking about on radio and television, is the sheer pedestrianization of a very, very serious national issue. They left the substance of the matter and went into abstruse, nonsensical, like that, say, formalism. How can the Senate display so much impunity writ large? A matter had been taken to court, and the court had given an interim order, gave a return date, and they thought in their own wisdom that they have a right to override the constitutional right of a citizen, of a senator, to go to court to present the matter wherever he feels that his civil rights and obligations have been violated. So what the Senate had done is unconstitutional, is illegal, and the whole way the matter was presented, pedestrianized and discussed, is just the usual old boys club, where they found somebody who they can now think is a stranger. Therefore, he or she must be dealt with to teach him or her a lesson. So asking about Senator Natasha's knowledge of the rules is neither here nor there. That's not the point. Somebody has alleged that somebody sexually assaulted her. Okay? So if that is the case, that is a very weighty matter that does not require the man just sitting down there and laughing and presiding over his own case. Are we primitive? Are we not civilized enough? I am outraged at what has happened, because if we continue going this way, the world is not waiting for us. Sooner than later, already nobody takes us seriously. We are going to be marked as a nation of people who don't use their common sense. So it has nothing to do with our knowledge. It has everything to do with the character and lack of integrity of those who operate in the system and simply want to drown the voice of somebody who raises a dissenting opinion. It is not proper, it is illegal, and it is unconstitutional. Finally, how can you suspend somebody elected to represent a zone for 6 months? Even under their rules and what the courts have said, the highest you could suspend such a fellow is about 2 weeks or thereabout. So who will be speaking on behalf of that zone for the 60 days, withholding salaries and all this? You could see the punitive backward mentality in how they announced with glee their punishment. Those in favor say aye, those against say it's ridiculous, extremely ridiculous.
All right. Well, Mr. Onyekpere, would appreciate if you'll just go straight to the question without, denigrating the person of my colleague or the question. I think that left a very bad taste. We can ask the questions based on what the people think, and we appreciate if you answer, without seeming to denigrate our person or the questions being asked. But I want us to move forward in the sense that I think both of you have agreed that there needs to be something done about the standing order, the rule book of the Senate, in that it doesn't allow or provide that channel to allow people who have been aggrieved to really seek redress in that sense. So you have to be a part of that cult in that sense, which means that if you go against it, you might not get redress. You always have to align in that sense. And I want both of you to speak to it. So where do we move on from here? Because it looks like everybody agrees that something needs to be done. But who is going to bail the cat? And I'll begin with Mrs. Yesufu, then come to you, Mr. Onyekpere.
How do we move on from here is to take issues seriously. When he talked about, he wasn't denigrating you. He was just talking about the seriousness of this issue. I didn't say it in the studio. It's not about being denigrating. Our lives as a people, our lives has turned to nothing. We are suffering in our country, and it comes from here. And every day we get mockery from the people. And when we come to media, we're expecting the seriousness of the issue to be taken on. And there's laughter. And so that's it. The questions were more focused on, oh, what Senator Natasha has done. No, that's not it. The question should be on, why do we have this? Someone has come out to talk about sexual allegations.
Well, Mrs.
And we live in a country where people
I didn't
are not
sense
protected.
any laughter. I'm not sure if you
please?
can see me, but there's no laughter on my face. So I'm not sure where you got the laughter from, Mrs.
I'm the one. I'm giving you feedback on what I felt from what you said. You guys,
no,
when
you
you
said there was laughter on my face, and I'm putting it to you that there was no laughter on my face.
You can ask other viewers. And so this is the thing. Let's talk about these things and seriously with the seriousness that is required.
Mrs.
Right?
Yusufu, I need you to acknowledge.
I
need you to acknowledge that there was no laughter on my face when I asked you the question. So you said there was laughter on my face.
I think so when you asked, I said when the conversation was going on.
Which of the conversations?
I joined this program before 7. I came on before 7. So I've stayed here for quite a bit. And that's what I'm talking about. And I'm saying right now, we have a Senate where a travesty has just gone on. And as a nation, we're almost like moving it. It's almost like a joke. And so it is not the joke. So I'm saying he's not denigrating you. I'm giving you feedback. If you want us to do the back and forth here, if I need to continue with the question, I would gladly.
No, there's no back and forth here. I just need to put things in proper perspective so people watching will understand what this is about. We're asking you questions. How do we move forward? And that's what the question is.
Yeah,
so I really don't understand the backtracking. And I think this is what will really mess up the conversation if we're not able to tackle the issues as they are. How do we fix the issues in the Senate, in the institutions? Those are the questions, Mrs. Yusufu.
The question, before you ask the question, you talked about that your colleague was denigrated. And I needed to give you context that they weren't denigrated. It was a question that was raised when he said that.
And she didn't smile. She didn't smile when she asked the question. You realize that there was no smile on her face.
Back and forth instead of focusing on the issue.
Exactly.
Right
so
now.
please answer the question.
In the course of the conversation, we're doing a back and forth. If you would like, allow me to give you.
No, facts just have to be laid on the table, so nothing is misconstrued. That's all.
Exactly the same reason why I needed to give you that. It's not the smile. I said the room. The way it was, I think the seriousness of what we've just witnessed, it's not even here, talk less of on the street as we go on. And I need us to understand, this is a major issue. How do we go on from there? We need to understand there's a pattern. And there was something that was raised earlier on, because remember, there are always remote causes. I told you I've been here 6 before 7. I joined and I've been listening. We heard when former Senator Sheikh Hussaini talked about the fact that he almost got a suspension when he decided to reveal how much they were earning at the Senate. We've seen Senator Ninki, who got a suspension because of the fact that he came out to say that the budget was padded. We've seen other lawmakers who have. And this is it. We need to understand that there is a pattern whenever anybody speaks for Nigeria, stands for Nigeria, or they're fighting for their right, they are being suspended. How do we prevent this? It's for Nigeria to understand that this is not just about the senators that are out there. This is about every one of us. Are we standing to defend these senators? Are we standing to speak on their behalf? Are we standing to say enough is enough? The Senate should not do this. That is the way. It's a message we have to start. Otherwise, we have a court-like, mafia-like institution that punishes anybody that goes against its own rules. Let me give you another example. The other day, we saw the IG of police coming in to present a budget and bringing in something different from what had been given to the other senators. When one of the senators raised that, it was his own colleagues, other senators, that came after him. If we continue to look at those things and we do nothing, then we continue to do it. It is time for Nigerians to stand and call every one of them to order. It might be difficult. Do we need to start a recalling process? Yes, it might look impossible, but just taking on the issue and say, oh, it is what it is, and asking questions based on, oh, what rule was broken, what rule was not broken, it's not going to get us anywhere. So we need to understand that these happenings There's a pattern to it, and we need, it is affecting us, it is affecting the quality of governance in our country. Thank you.
Mr. Ayokwe, let's come to you on this particular issue, and I'd like us to stay on the merit of the conversation. What triggered this was just not adhering to rules. We can't throw that out of the window. Even as at yesterday, she was still sitting down when the Senate president was walking in. They have their rules, they have their rules. So my question is, where do we draw the line between protecting institution and allowing people to have their freedom of expression at the end of the day when there's a conflict between both? You've raised a question that what they did yesterday was in breach of section, I think 4(8) of the Constitution, and you raised all of these legalese around it. So between protecting institution, which we clearly saw that they dwelt on it yesterday, on that premise they suspended her, and she making a valid, serious allegation that border on civil and criminal nature against the Senate president, and it was thrown out initially because they say it's a subject of adjudication. She said, no, I never filed such shit. Where do we balance? Because that is a core conversation. Just as Mrs. Yusufu has said, something that happened to Mr. Shehu Sani as he tweeted.
Well, let me start by saying that I never sought to denigrate the person or integrity of the interviewer. I was talking about the sheer pedestrianization by the Nigerian Senate of a very serious issue. You see, the way you frame a question will determine the answer you get. The weight of the allegation of sexual harassment, what I'm saying, is far heavier and bigger than simply bringing a petition signed by you when you are the victim, not knowing that somebody else should have petitioned on your behalf. And that's why I use the word pedestrianization. Now, which institution are you protecting? In protecting an institution, you don't validate or ventilate illegality. In protecting an institution, it is not about protecting the present occupant of the seat. It is about the rules, constitutionalism. I would have loved to hear you question about why a matter that went to court, why being sub judice, while a valid order of court had been given, was simply overridden. And they said, go to hell, we don't want to wait for the court order. Is it not part of the reasons that the Supreme Court in the Rivers State case decided, because there was a court order which they said the state government did not obey? Why is this different? Why are we asking questions about protecting a system? If a system is bad, it needs to be thrown overboard. If a law doesn't make sense, nobody is bound to obey it. The days are gone when we will be blackmailed. I was an active citizen during the days of military dictatorship. We fought against the rules, which we saw were violative of our personhood, our dignity of the human person. So we were not bound by under any jurisprudential disposition to obey a law which simply denigrates our personhood. So what I'm saying in essence is that if a rule is antithetical to common sense, it's got to be thrown overboard. And there is no question of protecting an occupant of a seat. Rather, we should protect the institution. And grave allegations should not be swept under the carpet, under any guise. Because this is not the first time, like Aisha Yusufu said, and this is not going to be the last. If we can't stand up to the system because we simply want to protect an occupant of a seat, then that's too bad.
Okay, let me bring it to Ms. Aisha Yusufu on this one. Same question, because sometimes I think the argument is, but the perception borders around person against institution and all of that. But you raise a very valid point as to the rules. And my interest, especially I'm happy you're a woman, is the public perception that the hallowed chamber is not safe for women. That perception, whether it's right or wrong, is a question of debate. But if we say that, given that we just have 4 women and 105 men, if I flip the page, maybe something different can happen. How do we ensure that we insist as a people that the issues of sexual harassment allegations, for an example, is not tolerated, and there should be a clear-cut rule in the National Assembly as to how to handle it so that women will be further protected? Just let's begin from there first.
So the thing is this: women are not protected in Nigeria, And literally every woman in Nigeria that you see lives with PTDS. And we are always on the edge. Right now, what you see is the fact that we have a lot of sexual allegations around. We have a lot of victims. Now we have a distinguished senator whose voice has been shut down when she has come out to cry, who is actually being shamed both by her colleagues and also some members of the public. So you imagine if a senator does not have the safe space for her to dare to speak out, what then about other women and what they're going through? I think the first thing that we need to see that leads to a place whereby people will begin to think that, oh no, sexual harassment will not be tolerated in Nigeria. You know, we needed to have a place where they will say, even when the Senate president was accused of sexual harassment, you could see something was done. The first thing that needed to be done would have been to say to Senator Akpoti, step down. Step down, let this issue be investigated. Let there be transparent investigation. Let there be independent investigation. Let there be a public hearing on this. Let the matter be taken. Let's see what the facts are. But what we see now is that they're shutting down the voices, putting the whole case, pushing it under the table. And this sends a very strong message to perpetrators that, you know, it's a place where you can do whatever you want to do and nothing is going to come out of it. If, for example, the senator is saying this, how many other persons at the National Assembly are being sexually harassed and now they can't speak? Now they've been told if they dare to do anything, this is going to happen. How many other women or sometimes even men, because sexual harassment goes either way. It's a matter of power. People who feel they're in power, they can do and undo. How many other victims do we have all across Nigeria who are going through this? So that's why, for me, when we make this issue about some following rule and not following rule, that's not the crux of the matter.
That's something to consider.
That there's a sexual harassment allegation against the Senate president.
Indeed.
And there was no need for him to sit and judge on a matter that concerned him in the manner that they did, the charade we saw yesterday.
Indeed, you're right on the money, Mrs. Yusufu. That's something to consider, the possibility that many more are going through this, and because of fear of persecution, they're unable to speak up. But I'm glad you talked about having joined in on the program before 7, and you heard much of the conversation. But if you did, then you would have also noted that we covered much of the ground, talking about the relativism of sexual harassment, why some of her colleagues did not sign the petition on her behalf. And indeed, the question you asked earlier about whether or not we asked if the Senate president should recuse himself, that was also covered by my colleague Jeffrey. And I, in fact, also asked, why she didn't get the measure of support required from her female colleagues. So we at Channels Television, we're objective, we're unbiased. We cannot, queue up beside the senator who has made the allegation alone. We have to cover all sides to the story. So I apologize if we did not, put out much of the sentiments that you would rather have heard. So let me proceed with this now, and I'll appreciate it if you can answer
add a bit of an addendum.
60 seconds.
You remember I said at one time the Zoom, I was out of the Zoom. I noted that. So I saw you covered quite a lot, and I did mention when I was speaking that at one time, the Zoom had a glitch, so they had to take us out. We rejoined, and I mentioned that. So there were things that you said. Of course, you did talk about the things around the area, but what has to be said has to be said.
It's just important.
Yes, you guys.
It's important to put it out there that we haven't trivialized the issue.
I did, and I said I wasn't there. I had to go out because of the Zoom distance.
All right. Yeah. All right. So here's.
I've heard you.
Here's the final poser there. We didn't see, we in fact saw a male senator pleading for leniency for Senator Natasha. And I'm wondering why the female senators, 4 of them, none of the female senators stood up for her by any measure. So what does this say really about that commentary that women time and again try to, reduce the impact of, which is why perhaps whether women do not support each other?
If I may come in here, I think that the opposition may not be supportive of such sweeping generalization. It may be for some personal interest, because some of us felt, somehow we are taken aback when we saw a particular female senator who had even been abused by the same system, who had in the past complained, lining up to say as if to say she was using it as an opportunity to get back in the favor of the books of those who run the system. So the fact that none of them spoke up against what was happening is not just evidence that women fight themselves. It's maybe evidence that they are also afraid of being blacklisted, or being threatened, or even being denied their rights if they are seen to be supportive of this one who more or less has gone against the system. So that is my perspective of that. Let's not use that fact to make a sweeping generalization. The system has a big hammer in its hands, and anybody who seems to support may not be hammered immediately. They may be looking for opportunities to hammer that person in due course. And very few persons are interested in positioning themselves for hammering.
All right. And I think that should be the way forward now, how to ensure that the institution alone is not protected, but people are also protected, whether they're minority, the vulnerable, or what have you. Everybody's right should matter. We have to thank you so much, Mr. Ezeon Yekbere, Lead Director, Center for Social Justice, as well as Aisha Yusufu. She calls herself an active Nigerian citizen. Thank you so much for your time. Let me say Ramadan Mubarak to you, Mr. Yusufu. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ramadan Karim. Thank you for having me.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, we have more for you. This time we're talking security. That's in a moment.
Welcome back. Let's get away from the move on from that issue, because it's a developing story. There's going to be a lot of commentary as far as the issue of what played out at the Senate is concerned. So in the coming days and coming weeks, perhaps it's just going to continue. But let's talk to our security consultant who joins us for the very first time here in Port Harcourt, Lagos studio. Ademola Adetuberu is a security consultant on the program, giving us tips always whenever we need him. Welcome to Lagos.
Thank you so much for having me physically.
We've talked to you from Ibadan, we've talked to you from Abuja. Now you decided to come, so thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much.
So today we're talking about young people. But perhaps you may want to piggyback on our previous conversation, which has to do for us. There are two things playing out here. But what is the big highlight is to be able to provide safe spaces for vulnerable persons like women who need all the protection. The Senate is a house of 109 persons, distinguished senators. Just four of them are women. So the odds are literally against them. So that is why this issue is a big issue. And it borders on a couple of other issues: sexual harassment, abuse of power to that effect. But you may, if you can comment on that, but piggyback on that to the issue of how young people can protect themselves, because we heard other senators say, oh, don't even allow it in the first place, and all of this issue. Maybe just general comments before we get to the nitty-gritty of security.
Wow. Well, the matter at hand at the Senate, it's an interesting one, and it's something, we have few days to celebrating women, and this is
Women's Month, literally.
Literally. So it's unfortunate, but we do hope that we'll let the institution sort out themselves, and if it's in the court truly, we'll also let the court just take a stand on it.
Yeah, I see what you did there. So let's talk about tips. NYSC people going on their service to the nation, but maybe we'll broaden it to young people. When I saw NYSC and young people and university students protecting themselves, when we were in school, we had called boys, we had good boys, we had all sort of people.
Yeah.
So when you talk about protection for students, what are you talking about here?
Okay, so the first thing about protection, personal safety begins with awareness. Personal safety begins with awareness, preparedness, and smart decisions. Awareness, preparedness, and smart decisions. And if you happen to be a core member, or you will be a core member, or you are in any of our institutions, these are tips. I'll be talking about tips that you can arm yourself with. And the first I would say is know your environment. Know your environment. Know your environment by also understanding the do's and don'ts of your environment. The do's and don'ts of your environment. You also want to pay attention to their cultural sensitivity. You want to pay attention to their cultural sensitivity. It's part of security. It's part of security. And also you want to blend with the environment. Blend when it comes to what you wear. You want to blend with the environment. The second thing I will talk about.
What do you mean by blend with the environment?
Okay, so when you get to a new place, the first thing you don't want for you not to look odd. You pay attention to what they wear. What do they naturally wear in that place? When you continue to wear what you are used to, not blending when it comes to attire, right? You'll be seeing, of course, immediately the odds are against you. You'll be seeing, oh, this person is new in this environment, and that is not good for you, because that immediately takes you out, and everybody knows that, oh, there's something about this person, it does not belong to this environment. So you want to blend positively, not negatively, with the environment. Understand the cultural sensitivity. The culture in that environment it goes a long way. Okay. And also, you also want to know the do's and don'ts. The do's and don'ts. Try as much as possible. Wisdom is better for you to use at that point in time. The second thing I will talk about is emergency contact. You want to belong, if there are no neighborhood watch, for corpers, for students, you want to create one for yourself, where you can immediately put up something if you are going through a particular security issue. So apps, you also want to pay attention to apps. There are apps that people can subscribe to. They are actually paid for. That with a click, in case of abduction, in case of any form of threat, with a click, it immediately sends the location where you are to the people that are controlling the app, right? It sends location and immediately also turns on your camera where they can see you, right? And they can also hear conversations. So you want to, if you can, subscribe to such apps. The next thing you also want to do, you want to know the chief of that area. As a student serving somewhere, it's so important you go in groups.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out.
You have to go in groups, not just go alone. Right? You go in groups. Know the chief, of that environment. Lastly, on emergency contact, you also want to learn, if it is possible. It's not a place for you to learn defensive moves, defensive techniques, taekwondo, judo, boxing, in case you find yourself in such a threat circumstance. The next thing I will talk about is also avoid late night movements. Avoid late night movements, an environment where you are not used to, right? You don't want to be seen at odd hours of the day. And everybody knows most of the kidnaps that happens late in the night. So you want to avoid late night movement. I also talk about online safety awareness. Online safety awareness. First and foremost, every one of us have to pay attention. Turn off location on your devices. Yeah. The moment you step, as I came into Lagos, right, if I had location on my app, on my devices, everyone that goes on social media can immediately tell that I'm in Lagos. So turn on, you want to pay attention to that. Turn off location on your devices. Then the next thing you want to do is, a lot of times, I don't understand, a lot of us get to post our itinerary on social media. It's not safety wise for us to continue to do that. I always tell people, don't post when you are in a location. It's okay to post after you have left, but giving people real-time update about you is not safety wise, because you can't tell.
Except maybe your spouse or your family members.
I'm talking about posting even online. I'm talking about posting online.
Posting online.
Yeah, I'm talking about posting online. So it's not the best. It's not safety wise. When you get to a place, immediately you do a video. I'm at so place. And you are telling the entire world, you don't know those that will hate you, you don't know your competitors, you don't know those going after you. You are giving out a lot of information. It's actually better for us to be discreet. Be discreet. Try and be confidential. If you have to post after you've left.
What happens if you live in spaces that there's really little or no control for you? What I mean is, you live in the hood, or you were posted to the hood because you want to serve the country, what do you do? I mean, where there are notorious people who can take on anyone and anything at any time. Do you understand what I mean?
I do understand.
What do you do?
So
how do you measure up? How do you protect yourself?
How do you protect yourself? So when you live in such a place, such an environment, of course, first and foremost, safety awareness, situational awareness is key. Right, situational awareness, avoid late nights. It's also good, be prepared. How do you get yourself prepared? Have equipment, safety equipment, tasers, body alarm, it could be tear gas, right? Have all of these equipment, arm yourself with all of these tools, just in case if there's anything that happens, right? Immediately you can diffuse such threats.
There's a lot to learn from you whenever we have you, but it's totally out of time. So I'm sure that the students out there and the people that are going for the NYSC, they've listened to you, and I hope, especially that part you said they should consult with the leadership, traditional leadership in the environment.
Yes.
It's quite important because they know themselves in that environment. Most thank you so much for coming on the program as always. Our security consultant who has been here time and again. But before you go,
yes.
Since it's Women's Month, specifically, what do you have for women as far as this conversation is concerned when it comes to protection?
When it comes to protection, women should wear confidence. Women should wear confidence. Women should not be timid. Women should speak out. I think that's what I would say.
Okay. Ademola Adetuberu, the security consultant, thank you so much for coming all the way to Lagos. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to other part of the conversation on the program. Join us again.
Let's quickly talk about how to get the most from this device, your laptop, right? And we're joined on the program by Akin Bitoye, TMB Tech Advisor. Akin, it's good to see you on Piece of Fix yet again. So let's get into it. Our laptops, it is really hot these days, and I'm seeing lots of laptops doing overwork, overheating. So let's start from that very important point. How do you protect this very important and expensive device from overheating and, you know, performing well in spite of that?
Emphasis yours. Expensive. A very good morning. So identifying common laptop issues, like you alluded to just now, devices tend to run hot, and that's the bane of electronics. Over time, when you use it, you notice it gets hot. And over time, if care is not taken, of course, part of what we also do to make those issues exacerbate, you can find common laptop issues will be overheating. Yes, it should run hot, but certain kind of hot that can boil egg, that can cook noodles, should not be. Then, of course, consequence of that will be slow performance and, of course, battery problems where your devices do not stay long between charges. Okay, so the impact of overheating when your laptop overheats would be, you would notice it can cause severe damage. Then you take it, they tell you, oh, sorry, it's the motherboard. Oh, sorry, so and so has gone bad. And that is what overheating causes. We'll get to the cause and, of course, what you can do to save yourself some money. Because, yes, on PC Fix, we want to save you money. So causes of overheating would be blocked vents. If you notice on the laptop you're holding, there are some vents, air vents on there, underneath and to the side. So that's where the fan takes in cold air and blows out hot air through the vents. The hot air that blows out is what keeps the processor and the other components cooled down. Yes, you may not have noticed, but all laptops have air vents
right here,
because there's a fan in there. Yeah, those vents do not need to be blocked. Once they are blocked, your computer will have issues. So, of course, we have some cooling solutions that can make it better. If you check the slides, there's a particular dust gets accumulated in those air vents over time.
True.
And once the air cannot come out as efficiently as the manufacturer planned it, your computer starts to run extra hot. Yes.
I see some dust here, actually.
Exactly. Heat is the enemy of electronics. Why? Because the hotter it gets, the lower the performance, and ultimately it will get bad faster. So cleaning the cooling system is one of the maintenance you would want to do. You know, over time we take our cars for maintenance. But our computers, our laptops, until it breaks down, you do not take it for maintenance. It's still working now. I still used this laptop last night. This morning, it's just showing me it's not working. Oh, yes, because you did not take it for maintenance. And what are the maintenance options available? One of it is cleaning the air vents. And of course, sometimes they can do some more technical stuff in there, but make sure you give it to a professional. I won't say more than that. So the impact of dust and debris, we live in an environment that is very temperate with high humidity. So dust is like second nature to us. Even when you think you are breathing in clean air, the parts per million, that's the dust particles now, is still significant. So your computer takes in a lot of those dust and they build up over time. 3 months, 6 months is enough time for you to take it to an expert to open it up and clean the air vents. This I'm emphasizing because it impacts a whole lot on your computer. If you've ever had the situation where they tell you, oh, it's the motherboard.
Right.
Okay, why would the motherboard just go out? It's the build-up of heat over time because of dust, because of clogged air vents.
So one other thing that slows down the performance of our devices is all of these applications that are open. People open like 100 windows. There's a lot of things running in the background. So how can we also get the most from those?
Yeah, talking from experience.
Well, the guilty as charged.
We've all been there. There are certain tabs open in your browser that you want to go back to later.
Yes, because you're doing research for the show. You know.
Yeah, but we have finite time, 24 hours. Then you have to sleep. You have to commute. You have to communicate with people. So those tabs just end up getting overbloated. I think Bukola mentioned the last time she had about 80 something. I'm still chasing the record. I think I have about 120, but of course my computer can handle it, right?
Yeah.
So if your computer has limited resources, by resources I mean the storage, the RAM, that's the random access memory. I give this analogy that think of your computer storage, your hard drive, your solid state drive as a parking lot. The bigger it is, the more cars you can park in there, right? Think of your RAM, not the live RAM, as a tabletop. If you have a small table, you can only open a certain number of files per time. If you have a big, like a conference table, you can open multiple files. And of course, the processor is the speed with which you can run through those files. So your computer resources, if finite, please close the tabs. You can just bookmark them. Pressing Control D on your keyboard will bookmark the page. You can close the tab. Next time you want to go there, just go to your bookmarks and
there you can
find it.
Let
me quickly.
Yes. We have less than 30 seconds to wind down. I know this is very important, but you want to talk about that last point quickly, Aki.
Yes, please avoid putting your laptops on the bed, on the sofa, any other soft surfaces. You do that because it's convenient. You know, most time you want to catch a movie, you want to quickly binge watch, you just put it on the bed, put it on the pillow. Those surfaces will block the air vents, and that's why over time you notice your computer is plugged in but not charging.
Right.
Because it is running extra hot. Let's just put a pin in there. We'll continue the next time.
And you know, it's rather ironic that it's called a laptop, but they advise do not place it on your laps for too much, especially because of the other operating systems close to that area. But we have to thank you so much, Akin Bitoye, TMB Tech Advisor. Thank you for your time and for the advice that you always bring on PC Fix.
Okay, have a lovely day.
Of course, we'll be getting more in the coming days, but we'll take a moment now. When we return, is one of your favorites on TV. He's been able to drop nuggets after nuggets. Who am I talking about? You find out in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the program. So it's the first quarter of the year already, and a lot of us made resolutions, maybe from the 31st of December or maybe from Christmas for the year 2025. How are we doing so far with those resolutions? As we say, how far in Nigeria? We have someone to set you on course and to help you move a little closer to your dreams. He's tested and trusted as a motivational speaker who has also, moved into many other fields with success stories to attest to it. So join me this morning as we welcome Mr. Olumide Emmanuel. He's a motivational speaker He's a minister. Amongst many other things, is also an author. He's a chairman, Common Sense Group, I like this one, and global president, the Billionaires Conclave. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thanks
sir.
for having me. Yeah.
And so I can't resist the temptation to start this way. I took down a number of some of your nuggets that you're popular with.
Okay.
And so here's some. If you gate crash, you will crash land.
Yeah.
You can never win a prize for a prize you did not pay.
Yeah.
If you appear before your time,
You disappear.
Now, how do you come up with these nuggets?
Some by inspiration, some by repetition of what other people have said, because in life we learn from people. So when I hear people say things that resonates with me, I try to listen to it over and over again until it becomes something that is conscious. So you have to move it from the subconscious to the conscious, and it becomes a software that runs your own life. So some of them are inspired, some of them I learn from other people.
And so they're not just a play upon words. They're not just a pun, because when you think about them, they appear to be true when you really take time to reflect upon them. Now, let's talk about goals. A number of us have goals, and sometimes when you see successful people, sometimes they're geniuses who have achieved their success, and there's sometimes there are a number of average persons who also happen to achieve success above average. So from your experience as a coach, what do you find to be in that space that they do differently? Either they're average or geniuses who are able to achieve their full potential in life?
Well, globally, goal setting has already been known to be one of the major keys to success in any aspect of life. But the challenge is that a lot of people are not intentional. You see, everybody sets goals, but some people set it consciously and some do it unconsciously. Almost everybody wakes up every day, I'm awake, I need to eat. Oh, that's a goal. I need to eat. You now start planning to eat. But if you do that with eating, taking your bath, brushing your teeth, wearing your clothes, going out, why not do that about the major aspect of your life also? So everyone sets goals, but the difference between those who excel is, number one, they are intentional about the goals that they have set, and number two, they actually act on it. Because 1,000 good intentions are not as powerful as one action. So a lot of people have good intention. I plan to, I hope to, I intend to eat now. Start doing it. That's when the results will come. And that's the missing link for a lot of people. That's action.
So that brings me to the issue of discipline and ethics.
Yeah.
I want you to speak, because I've listened to you a couple of times, and there's that consistency of intentionality.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are not intentional the way they should be? And that has separated a lot of the packs.
Their why is not strong enough. They don't have a strong enough why. Like you said, I'm the global president of the Billionaires Conclave, and we host, our annual events. As a matter of fact, it's this morning, so people are already waiting for me now.
So gathering this morning.
Oh yes.
So we can follow you from here.
So the 5 of them are lodged in the hotel already, and we're starting 9 a.m. this morning. But I had to come because of the invitation now. And 3 years ago, a lady walked into that meeting where about 3 of us standing just discussing, and she comes in looking out of this world. Her shoes, her bag, the perfume was what was like, wow. And she sits down there, goes through the first day. The second day of the meeting, she stands up to ask the question. I don't understand. Now, when I came in yesterday, I was like billionaire in this Nigeria. But I came in, I saw a lot of young people. And the way people are calling billions since yesterday, I'm like, are we in the same country? So because the entirety of last year, that was the previous year, that our entire turnover for the year was less than 10 million. But look at that guy. I know that guy. About 4 years ago, he still borrowed money from me. But I know he's a genuine person. I can say, I didn't know that you people are making this. So why am I not making the same kind of money? Now this day too, and she's dressed up. So I asked her, I said, all these things you are wearing, do you know how much it costs? That when you came in yesterday, we saw you. I said, that means it's either you have a rich husband, or you have money, or a rich father that is taking care of you. Also, yeah, I'm married and my husband takes care of me. Is there anything wrong in that? I said, that's why you can't make the kind of money that we have made. But if you are a single parent, you have a man taking care of you, taking care of all your bills, the desire, the drive to make money will be lower. I said, if you have a useless husband that is not taking care of, or you are a single parent of 2 children, and you still have mother, brother, sister, everybody on your head, I said, you will make more money because you have a stronger why. I say your why is not strong enough. And are you now telling me that I should not take money from? I said, I said, listen to me, wealth is not sexually transmitted. You are married to a rich man, that does not make you rich. You are the wife of a rich man. You are not rich. Because if that man dies today, can you give yourself and the children the same quality of life that that man gives? And so I'm not saying don't collect money from yours. I say, have a bigger wife. Say, so what's my wife? I say, let your children become your wife. I say, because the children are not your husband's children, they are your children also. So make up your mind and say, by the time these 2 children are 18, I want to hand over ₦1 billion each to 2 of them. When that becomes your wife, it's not about survival, it's about vision. I said, when you do that, you begin to drive. Because every time you drive, you face opposition. You're like, I can't come and keep myself. My husband is thinking, what am I even looking for? And so now you know you are looking for something. The next year, she did over 100 million.
Wow. This takes me smack into the
that's why the common sense comes in.
Right? And I'm really intrigued by this billionaires conclave of a thing. I've always had this dilemma, or not a dilemma, a big question about life. Why isn't everybody rich in that sense? And Jeffrey has maybe tackled a part of that question, but now to find a very good balance, because they always say Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world, and the next thing is the government is not doing well. That's why we have that number of poor people, that high population of poor people, right? But there's also the personal bit. So how do we find a good balance? Because some will say, well, I have good intentions, but when I want to do stuff, there's no light. The road is bad. There is terrible healthcare system, policies, and all of that. So in this climb, you've been able to show that we can have billionaires, yes. But how can we replicate that in terms of personally and government policy-wise?
Now, the first thing you need to understand is that everybody can become rich and wealthy,
in spite of the,
but not everybody will become rich and wealthy, because not everybody will know and do what they need to know and do. Some don't know what to do, because if you know better, you do better. Some know, but they don't do it, and they just hope and wish that one day it will just happen. No, riches are cash based, wealth is asset based. So you can be rich because you have money, but that doesn't make you wealthy. To be wealthy means you have assets that is now producing the cash flow. Now, every time people talk about the crisis in Nigeria, crisis creates opportunity, because money hides in problem. It is those who solve the problem that have the money. So every time you are complaining there is no road, look, sit down with elderly people. It has always been like that. In the 70s, they had their excuse. In the 80s, there was still no light. In the 90s, so it's because many times people think it's a special problem. These challenges are actually the tools that will make you rich and wealthy when you solve the problem. Because money flows in exchange for goods and services, and it flows in exchange for value. When you offer value, money flows. What is value? Meeting needs, solving problem, answering questions. So yes, government has their part to play. About 75% of Nigerians live below $1 a day. That's extreme poverty. So no problem, we know that. But now, how do we solve the problem of the poverty, of the situation around us? That is what gives you the money. So instead of thinking about the problem, think about the solution. Every time you wake up, have what we call VAT, value added thinking. What can I do differently? What value can I add? How can I solve it? It is when you solve those problems that you will make money. The people are poor. People are living under the bridge in Lagos, living in wooden shanties, but they eat at least once a day. If we have 25 million people in Lagos, so it means that at least 1 meal a day, 25 million meals a day. Not to talk of people that eat 3 times a day. So out of that 25 million, which one are you providing? People brush their teeth every day, whether it is with sponge or with Paco and charcoal and salt. Anyone, people bathe every day, they use soap. So think about all the money flowing. 30 December, how many billion did they say cross Lagos? Almost $90 billion.
They've not been able to get a handle on the full
can you imagine that? So which of them entered your pockets? Nigeria will say, oh, this is the budget for the year. As they are reading the budget, you are not a foreigner. You should sit down and go, more. This money, which one is my own out of this budget? You start looking at each of the sector. Where can I play? People are not ready to solve problem. You know, we do all this phoning program every time, and when I sit down, when they started this phoning program thing in Nigeria, radio program, I didn't believe it would work, because I'm like, so people will use their money to be calling you. But it started working because people were looking for a place to vent. So what had happened is what was happening with all this free readers association, where people sit in front of a newspaper vendor, they transfer it to the media. They will say, hello, who is that? What do you think? This country, have you noticed that almost every time people phone in, nobody is bringing solution? So what do you think we should do? That's the problem. The government, and everybody is complaining. The ability to identify problem is not a high level of intelligence. Everybody that have eyes can see when the place is dirty. Everybody that have nose can know when the place is smelling. It is the ability to solve the problem that makes you someone that is valuable. So we should become problem solvers, because the more you complain, if you like complain from today to tomorrow, some of the people you are complaining to, they are deaf and dumb. They are not ready to listen to you. They are not ready to answer you. So you have to become intentional about becoming a problem solver.
So I'd like to think that, flowing from everything that you have said, the expression "the billionaires conclave" is not just a beautiful sounding phrase, that they are indeed billionaires. Are you a billionaire, sir?
This is asset declaration form.
Yes, I am. Because I have assets worth over $1 billion. I've written over 100 books. One book alone is worth over $1 billion. Because if you look at who is a billionaire, then we begin to break it down. So, but for me, it's all about assets. So once you have enough assets to be able to do that, then you're good.
So a lot of us know you as the motivational speaker, the minister. Is it the author? Is it based on your work as, you know, these different realities and personalities that earned you the billionaire status in reality?
I've been doing business for 37 years. Should I be poor?
Okay. So you're also
so I didn't wake up one day and find money. So it takes time. Wealth creation takes time. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not something you just wake up and become wealthy. It takes time. If you are 10 years old or you are 20 years old, just yesterday, I just came back from Benin yesterday night. One of the speakers that spoke yesterday spoke about how she bought a land for 35 million 23 years ago, and she sold it for almost 800 million. Can you wait for 23 years? I went to Ikorodu in 2001 and bought 100 acres of land for 50,000 per plot. 2001. This 2025. Can you wait for 24 years? Do you understand? I went to Abuja in 2008 and bought 100 acres of land for 50,000 naira per plot. I waited till now. Can you wait? So wealth is created over time. So when you see people that are wealthy, it begins with a wealthy mindset. So all the people in the billionaire club, they are not all billionaires as in they have 1 billion, but they are people that have a mindset of offering value that will attract that level into their life, and that's the way it works.
There's a concern I would like you to speak to broadly, and I'm happy because we can listen to you for as long as we continue to talk. Transgenerational wealth is a problem in Nigeria. Sometimes we even look like people like Aliko Dangote say, God forbid anything happens to this man, what happens? Why do you think, because I think one of the international network they have a program called the 100 Club. Your company must be at least 100 years old before you can be on that program. Why can't we have that in this country and sustain it?
Now, one of the major reasons why we don't have that is because you need a transgenerational mindset, a transgenerational vision, and a transgenerational strategy. When you look all around us, most businesses and organizations in this part of the world that are started, that are indigenous, they have not crossed 50 years. And the reason is because the first generation is always a pioneering generation. They go through the grind and they produce wealth by their sheer hard work and ingenuity and doggedness. But the second generation becomes a maintenance generation. Oh, let us maintain what daddy and mommy has done. Oh, let it not be destroyed. Oh, by the time the third generation comes, they become an entitled generation because they don't even know where the wealth came from. They are probably born abroad with a second passport. Driver is taking them to school. They don't know how to enter Molwe or enter BRT. They don't cook. Somebody is cooking for them. So by that third generation, they become entitled. By the fourth generation, they are back to poverty. So what needs to happen is that the first generation must be a pioneering generation. The second generation, while maintaining what the first generation has done, must also begin to pioneer their own and take what has been done into their own generation and relate it to their own time and season. The third generation, while enjoying the perks, must also generate their own and bring what has been done into their own generation. You see a lot of people that are around today. I was in Benin, like I said, one of the members of the Billionaires Conclave, a multi-billionaire. I had a session with her and her husband, and they said, please talk to our children. Many people have raised children with money from Boli, money from Agbado, money from things, and the children are sent to school. They now graduate. Instead of it to now carry that degree and come and take the Boli to the next level, take the Agbado to the next level, they now enter bank, they enter oil company. What happens? So I was telling the girl, I said, listen, your parents use the money of printing press to raise you. They use the money of bakery to raise you. Now you have a certificate. You are saying you want to go and do this. So who now takes over all this? So many people need to understand that the next generation will not be passionate about what you are passionate about. So I have to tell the parents, say, listen to me. You can't force them to do whatever. You don't start business because I want to hand over to my children. That has expired. Well, starting business now, start a business because you want to offer value and make a difference in your generation. So what you need to do now, we're going to go into another strategy. Let's begin to think of ownership and management. These children cannot manage this thing. So what you now need to do is retain the ownership within the family, but let's get somebody else to manage it. So they can own it, but they don't have to be the one to manage it. And that's the new level. We have moved from wills, you are doing will, you are put it in a trust. So there are strategies to all these things, which is what we try to help people to understand. So for me, that's why we don't have transition, because the next generation is not generating, they're just relying on what has been generated.
Wow.
I know this generation is always like, we're not the problems here, right? Because it looks like everybody is at them. No, this is how you should do things. And they're saying, no, I need to do things my own way in that sense. And I know that there's that constant battle, millennials and Gen Z. Gen Z will tell millennials that, well, you suffered and you took it. We don't want to suffer. We want to be able to say no and stand by it. We're paying attention to our mental health. So if my mental health is not being prioritized, exactly the term now, we live and we don't care what happens next. So people have said, yeah, absolutely, let everybody go their way, but they still need to have some sort of learning. Let there be that kind of handshake. Maybe Gen Z's learn to build a structure and all of that. But I want you to speak generally to the mindset of the coming generation. What is that thing you think they could add to make them phenomenal? Because they are great people, but it looks like there's something missing.
And you know, many of us grew up under the military era. And the military messed up our minds and messed up our psyche. And for many of us also, I said to people, if you are living in Nigeria, you are traumatized. You just don't know. You are traumatized every day. Light, water, road, everything. So, but this new generation, they don't want to go through that same situation. So what I will tell them is to understand that we are not fighting each other. We love you, we care about you, we want you to have a better life. But if you think you have a better idea, bring it to the table and let's have a discussion. And let that handshake take place with honor and respect. So the older generation should honor and respect the younger generation because they know more than you think they know.
Right.
They are more wiser, more intelligent, more exposed than you, but they don't have the kind of experience that you have. So you need to understand, like we say in Yoruba, you can have all the designer clothes, but you can never have enough rags and experience like the elders, because what an elder will see sitting down, if you climb Kilimanjaro, you will not see it.
They say they use drone now.
So you respect the wisdom and the experience of the elders, and that will help you to be able to survive. Let me bring in the scripture here. When you look at the story of Samson, a very, very powerful story. You see, Samson became blind. But when he got into the 3,000-seater temple, the temple was standing on two pillars. Because he was blind, he could not see the pillar. But he had to look for a young boy. He said, please, where is the pillar? He was blind. The young boy was visionary. He knew where the pillar was, but he didn't have the strength to pull down the pillar. When he located the pillar with his vision, Samson pulled down the place with his strength. So we need the vision of the young and the experience of the old to bring down poverty and lack in our lives.
Just totally out of time. We can continue talking with you.
So we don't have transgenerational wealth because we don't have transgenerational mindset. 1,000 good intentions is incomparable to one action. Riches are cash-based, wealth is asset-based. Yeah. I've added that to my vocabulary. Thank you so much, sir. We've been having this very interesting conversation with Dr. Olumide Emmanuel. He's a chairman, Common Sense Group, global president, the Billionaires Conclave, and Common Sense Guru and Wealth Creation Agent. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And we look forward to having you on yet another invitation.
And I love your wife. I should see your screensaver. So.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that, sir.
Yeah.
So from this very inspiring segment, we move on to another one. This time around, we'll be looking at Nollywood and a particular movie that will interest you. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And so we move into the creative space in this segment, and joining me is Nollywood actress Susan Ibanga and filmmaker Morenikeji Uka. They're right here in our Lagos studios. Hello, ladies. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on the show. So let's talk about everything that light touches, which is what you're promoting currently. I've seen a bit of the review, and it's a beautiful movie. Maybe I'll start with you, Morenikeji, since you're the producer. What's the inspiration behind everything that light touches? And I ask this, I'm starting this way because it's about a teenager who has a challenge with autism. And so for those out there who have to raise an autistic child, I know that it's a huge challenge, and there's always a story behind an effort like this. So let's have the story.
So Everything Light Touches is a film about an autistic child who got missing in Lagos. We all know how chaotic Lagos can be, and finding out that someone with that kind of challenge gets lost, gets missing. Now this is somebody who cannot function properly in a social environment, now gets missing in a crowded place and a very unfamiliar space. So this is a story that brings us to the fact that in every family, in every home, in every place, there is a sense of shadow, there is a darkness, and we are trying to throw some sort of light into what those situations look like. And so our story have like two worlds, one where our main character comes from, the autistic boy comes from, and another environment where he finds himself, and this is the underbridge environment in Lagos where people live. And we're also trying to throw light into this situation as well, that people actually live here, and even though we know that evil exists, bad exists, but there are people here who are also good people. So we are bringing somebody who assumably comes from light into this different world, and we see how his light, despite his situation, despite his challenges, despite everything that he's going through, is able to radiate around him, and everyone around him, including these people who we, so to speak, have forgotten, are able to illuminate as well. So yeah.
Beautiful. So I believe Susan is the one that comes into contact with this teenage guy in this lonely area. Tell us about your role. How challenging was it?
It was challenging just being in that space, but it was something I embraced as an actor, and letting the environment, influence my performance and how I approached the role. I was very excited because it was nothing quite like something I've done before, so I really embraced it.
So how would you assess, I don't know his name, Abayomi, yes, but his real name, I'm trying to get that. How would you assess his interpretation? Interpreting a normal role in every sense of it is challenging. How much more, acting like an autistic teenager? How would you assess his interpretation, his delivery of the role? Susan?
I do think that he owned it. Yeah, he really did own it. Having to play roles like that, you're directed to see reference films and all of that, but I had a conversation with him where he said he deliberately did not want to see reference films just because he wanted it to be very authentic. So they went on to places where they had autistic people, and I'm sure he understudied them, and then kind of brought out his own version of, an autistic person.
You have additional thoughts?
So when we had that story, we knew that we were not just going to go into the film with the knowledge we have from reading online and researching. So we had to, go to schools where they have special kids, autistic kids, with the main character. We have like a whole day to study them, know how they behave, know their mannerisms, apart from reading and watching movies about this character. Because the story we are telling, this character is not fictional. This is people's reality, and it makes more sense to us to, portray this character in a real way that people who are actually going through this can understand and relate with. So research was one thing that was very particular for us, and Abayomi was with us throughout. You need to see how this boy transformed from him as a person into this character. For weeks after, he still couldn't function as himself because he couldn't get away from that role as Abayomi, as an autistic child. Even people, because we filmed on the street, they didn't believe that it was normal. They didn't know it was filmed. So yeah, he he did very, very well.
Amazing. So that tells me also that there's an inclusion element in this film that resonates with families that are raising autistic children, even schools of children with special needs. So what are the lessons that they can take away from this in terms of care for autistic children, not just caregivers at home now, the entire society as well?
So one particular phrase, and I think it's our trailer, that stood out for us was when the mother went to the police station, and the policeman says, "Na imbe."
Just as you.
A lot of people think autistic children are imbeciles. They are not. And this is one of the things we are trying to tell people. There are special needs kids as well, and they need special attention. They need special care. They need to be understood. A lot of them are smart, very intelligent. Our character is very intelligent, even though he has those challenges. So we are trying to tell people that this is a different situation. This is not an imbecile. This is different, and you need to take time to understand, read about it, study about it. Be more
open.
Be more kind to how you treat people, regardless of who they are and what they are. So this is one very key thing that we're trying to tell people.
And that's instructive. You want to say something?
So
Go ahead.
another lesson that can be drawn from it is the mother-child relationship. Now, let's say a mother has 3 kids and one is autistic, and there are 2 normal kids. So the relationship between the mother and the normal kids, because they might feel like, oh, this is a normal child, and there's a need to want to make that child be an assistant parent. So they need to realize that this normal kid is also a kid and should be treated as such, to strike a balance, actually.
And it's an important part of the story.
Yes.
I just wanted to say it, as Morenike has said, to everyone in every strata of the society, autistic children are not imbeciles. They're not in there, and our cues are important. Very quickly, let's talk about the business side of it. It's premiering. What are your options for premiere, and just basically speak to that.
So this is a multi-choice talent factory film, and it's going to be premiering on Africa Magic Showcase. It's going to premiere on Africa Magic Family, and it's going to definitely be on Showmax as well. So we are hoping that people would tune in to Africa Magic Showcase, Africa Magic Family. Tomorrow we have Africa Magic Showcase. Next week, Wednesday and Saturday, we have Family and also Showcase as well. And as time progresses, it's going to be on Showmax. So it's online, it's on cable, you get to watch it anytime.
All right, thank you so much. Susan Ibanga, Nollywood actress, and Morenike Uka, filmmaker and producer. Thank you for the amazing work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
All right, and that's it on this segment. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us, don't go anywhere.
Fantastic conversation there, Bukola.
I didn't know I'm this tall, by the way. I'm trying.
I'm also tall.
We have to thank you
Let's let him go there.
for being a part of the show.
I didn't get a memo, by the way, so carry on, Bukola.
It's okay.
Men in Black, so I'm your bodyguard.
Always check your mail. Wish you a great weekend. I'm Kayode Okikulu.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeff Ruzoma. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour. Bye-bye.